Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, now I will begin. Very cool. Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, of course, to the College Republicans for inviting me to speak with you all this evening, especially considering that I've been told that the Daily Bruin tried to actually censor this event because apparently my beliefs do not acknowledge cultural realities, whatever that means. And the College Republicans actually had the courage to push back against that, whereas most other organizations, your YAFs, your TPOSAs, they probably would have likely just rolled over. So that being said, it is worth pointing out to those people that while a degree from UCLA doesn't necessarily make them smarter than me, their belief in feminism does necessarily make them dumber than me. So there's that. But regardless, we're going to have a good time this evening. I always enjoy discussing feminism because it truly is the proto-red pill for many of us. We're growing up trying to enjoy ourselves, and then we find ourselves on the receiving end of vitriol centered around these ideas of male privilege and toxic masculinity. And then we realize how utterly insane the state of our world has become. And I've been specifically asked to discuss birth control and pornography, which works well for us because feminism is so cancerously pervasive in society that it would take probably more time than we have to analyze and refute all of it. Moreover, I would make the argument that these two consequences of feminism are some of the most dangerous and widespread, which would warrant more attention being given to them. But for some reason, mainstream conservatism is still focused on the Leviathan of debunking the wage gap so as to encourage more women to enter the workforce, which is going to own the libs. And so, yeah, birth control and pornography, they both have negative effects on men as well, which I've covered, as he mentioned, thoroughly on my channel. But for now, we're going to focus specifically on women. The reasons for this in order of relative importance are that men, who are the more political sex, must be made to realize the suffering that their weakness and capitulation causes upon those who they're supposed to protect and for whom they're supposed to provide. And also because I was asked to do that politely. So I do think, though, we have to proceed with a frank summary of feminism. Without one would probably be an injustice. So feminism is the most destructively ignorant ideology to ever be constructed and propagated, even more so than Marxism, which actually did inspire the more obviously destructive waves of feminism that would occur throughout the 1960s and into the present day. Feminism did not invent the dignity of women, that women are worthy of the same rights and respect that men are afforded. That was Christ. Feminists will claim with their sophomoric and intellectually retarded t-shirts that, well, feminism is just the radical notion that women are people. But if you actually study the ideology, you will learn what the more honest feminists will openly admit, which is that the core of feminist ideology is the idea that men and women are completely and totally equal, that there is virtually no difference between men and women except for arbitrary physical differences. They unironically believe that male and female brains function exactly the same, that men and women behave exactly the same, that they make exactly the same choices, and that if there are to be any discrepancies between the two genders, it can only be because of societally constructed gender roles which exist to oppress women. So despite the fact that there's virtually no legitimate evidence to suggest that this is true, whether that's with cross-cultural studies showing that male-female behaviors and desires are relatively the same throughout the world, even in primitive countries which haven't been ostensibly affected by our Western patriarchy, whether that's with studies done on the behaviors and desires of male and female infants, which would minimize the risk of societal influence showing the same thing. And even despite the fact that most women and self-identified feminists probably don't believe that there are no differences, it simply doesn't matter because the broader coalition in which they operate does believe this, and the policies which they've cemented in our society reflect this belief as would logically be expected. This is to say that the feminist thought leaders, oxymoron check, they don't believe in the capacity of women in mass to understand or believe what they're saying. And so they instead revert to emotionally charged rhetoric about women's rights or whatever, operating under the assumption that what they're doing is ultimately what is best for women, even though, as we'll discuss, nothing could be further from the truth. Even Simone de Beauvoir, who was a pioneering feminist and is also the reason we have gender theory now, so that's great. But she told Betty Friedan, another pioneering feminist who wrote The Feminine Mystique, in an interview that women shouldn't even be allowed to have the option to stay at home with their children instead of working, because even she acknowledged that too many women would just make that choice naturally. And so this is where they borrowed the Marxist concept of false consciousness, because if you agree with them, then, oh yeah, you're correct that you're being oppressed. But if you disagree with them, it's only because you've been made not to realize your own oppression. And so to break women out of that supposed false consciousness, you'll never guess what they did. They appealed to their emotions. Do you see the irony? In fact, one could argue, and I will, that the success of the feminist movement throughout the last 70 years vindicates what our society has believed about women since its founding and what all of the relevant literature would suggest, which is that female brains have a propensity for emotionally governed thinking. So the point of this observation, I guess, being that oftentimes we incorrectly recall these social movements as like these sort of like mass awakenings. And the most important lesson in politics, bar none, is that it is a spectator sport. The vast, vast majority of people will sit in the stands and passively watch the competing factions duel, only to ultimately side with whichever faction gains power so as to conform to the group and system which they require for stability, while simultaneously serving their self-image, this whole like, well, I'm on the right side of history attitude. So it is therefore incorrect to perceive feminism along with its adjacent and resultant social movements as essentially the result of people waking up one day and thinking like, wow, what if we were just nice to women? These movements, properly understood, are the direct results of a very small, hyper-focused and well-funded group of people. But the message we are taught is the message of mass awakening, as though we suddenly know better than our ancestors did for generations, because that is the message required to legitimize what our instincts and experience would otherwise reject. And this happens because, as we know intuitively, but upon which we seldom reflect, history is written by the victors. And the victors of feminism have not been women, as we'll discuss, but have been the oligarchs of society, many of whom were Marxists who financed its propagation because they knew that it would benefit them financially, and it has. Cheaper labor through increased supply, societal reorientation from family to consumption, the literal business of victimization, et cetera, et cetera. The true consequences of feminism have been summarized in what's referred to as the paradox of declining female happiness. The paradox is as follows. As women have achieved liberation throughout all aspects of life and society, they have become more unhappy than ever before. Women are now more depressed than men, are becoming increasingly depressed relative to men, and are more depressed than their mothers and grandmothers were at similar stages in their lives. In fact, the profile of the individual who is the most likely to be miserable in this country is the single middle-aged career woman with no children. But feminists will just impotently and desperately claim, well, this is because of residual patriarchy or pressure from men, whereas Aristotelian natural law would suggest otherwise. Because given that nature exists objectively, we have a choice to make in regards to whether we will live in accordance with it and its realities. So simply put, living in accordance with nature is optimally conducive to flourishing, and refusing to do so is not. Left-wing political thought, all distractions suppressed, is fundamentally defined by the rejection of nature and objectivity. This manifests throughout the entire corkboard of issues, but especially with feminism, since it is rooted in the belief that men are women, men are women, I guess would be the logical conclusion, but that men and women are exactly the same except for those arbitrary and inconsequential physical qualities that we mentioned earlier. Liberalism, which is just the seed of leftism, sought to liberate the individual, not just from oppressive governments like we're taught in public school, but from virtually everything that could potentially restrain the individual. So that'd be religion, language, nature, culture, heritage, history, gender, sexuality, race, family, nationality, etc. So liberalism, and more broadly left-wing political thought, believes that the individual can be liberated from virtually everything, that he can conquer virtually anything, including nature. This is why the, quote, father of liberalism, John Locke, crafted blank slate theory, the idea that everybody is the same at birth and it is only our experiences that make us different. Translated into contemporary leftist rhetoric, everything is a social construct. The point of this being that when one examines the paradox of declining female happiness sincerely, he'll likely be met with the battle cry of the midwit, the tiniest morsel of statistical education wielded as though it is a weapon of mass destruction. Causation does not equal correlation. Source. But given that we know that things can only flourish when living in accordance with nature, and given that we know that women have been forcefully integrated largely against their wishes into the male mode of existence, as though they have no natural state, would not even be entitled to one regardless, what we would expect to happen and see reflected empirically is exactly the case. It makes perfect sense, but it requires that we actually think about things for ourselves instead of just outsourcing our beliefs to the abstracts of studies from lab coats with poor physiognomy. Left-wing political thought, as it manifests within the masses, is essentially the exploitation of weakness and insecurity to cause trained deference to the systems of perceived authority. In other words, the libtard fears the intuitive prediction. And this conflict between the left and intuition is seemingly eternal because it is at its core the conflict between the subjective and the objective. Feminism thought that it could liberate women from womanhood, and the contraceptive pill was one of the methods by which they sought to do that. And it was and is thought that if you can alter the biochemistry of the body to eliminate the obvious cause for responsibility from sex, then women will be closer to achieving equality, defined as emulating male likeness and behavior. So there's a political scientist, very celebrated. I mean, he got liberalism wrong, but his name is Francis Fukuyama. And he wrote that the contraceptive pill is one of the two biggest developments of the 20th century alongside the information age. And so this is true, but of course, not everything that is significant is good. So regardless, in the history of male-female relationships, there has never been a development as significant to the dynamics of those relationships as the contraceptive pill, other than the apple. And the conflict yet again manifests because this desire to liberate oneself from the bindings of nature, to even conquer it, and that is going up against the intuitive prediction. Blessed Pope Paul VI wrote a letter to all of the bishops of the Roman Catholic Church, which is called an encyclical in 1968, which was titled Humanae Vitae, I think it's pronounced, and it concerned things such as the contraceptive pill. And so in this encyclical, he warned of 4 resulting trends from the contraceptive pill, absent any input from humanities graduate students. And those were a general lowering of moral standards throughout society, a rise in infidelity, a lessening respect for women by men, and the coercive use of reproductive technologies by governments. Do any of these ring a bell? To cite the mountains of empirical data that we have aggregated over the course of the last 50 years, which vindicate these predictions, is at risk of redundancy. Unless you've been living off the grid, which frankly I wouldn't blame you for, you experience the effects of those trends every day of your life. The only one which has yet to directly affect us in this country would be the coercive use of reproductive technologies by governments. But we've seen this happen in countries like China and India regardless. And since we have domestic propaganda which claims that having children is eco-terrorism, it's probably only a matter of time before we are faced with the same. And this is imperative to the discussion because as people, we basically have a binary for how to navigate through our world. It would seem that we can either conform our desires to the truth or that we can conform truth to our desires. Both of these harbor consequences, but only one of these is conducive to flourishing. And if you allow for truth to come second to desire, then the truth of your suffering will be clouded, even rejected outright by the desires for which you began to suffer in the first place in many cases. And so the contraceptive pill, for example, it's literally a depression pill, but it's marketed to young women as their ticket to the good life. Many young women begin taking it when they're just in high school, enabled by their cognitively bankrupt mothers and weak and or absent fathers. And this has severe consequences for individual women along with society as a whole, which I guess is contrary to the mainstream narrative that tells us that altering your biochemistry to trick your body into believing that it's pregnant at all times is good, because now you can allow yourself to be taken advantage of by men without having to worry about pregnancy. And I guess that like your period cramps aren't as bad or something. Very epic. But at what cost? Well, we have studies, we have sources, and they have shown that women who are on the contraceptive pill tend to gravitate towards men who are more feminine, which could explain how in the last several decades, the most desired men in society have devolved from the caliber of John Wayne and Sean Connery to that of men like Harry Styles. Moreover, that a woman's physical attraction to her husband actually may suddenly diminish or disappear if she meets him while she's on the contraceptive pill and then goes off it at some point during their marriage. In other words, this pill either convinces women to breed with the most feminine men, thereby weakening society, or it can decrease a woman's attraction to her husband, which combined with no-fault divorce can thereby potentially weaken society as well. Additionally, the contraceptive pill literally weakens the genetics of the population. Studies have shown that women taking the contraceptive pill undergo a shift in preferences towards men who share similar MHC genes to themselves, whereas women who are not taking the contraceptive pill are attracted to men who share different MHC genes as detected via the man's scent. And so the reason for that is that MHC genes play an important role in immune system surveillance, and preferring MHC genes that are different from your own is an evolved mechanism for strengthening the immune system and helping the offspring to survive. Why does this happen? Because fundamentally, you are your hormones. There's no such thing as a magic bullet with hormones. They affect virtually everything in your body and result in everything about you. Your mood, your appetite, your stress response, your self-image, everything. Women who are taking the contraceptive pill have their oxytocin diminished, for example. Oxytocin is called the bonding hormone, and studies have shown that women taking the pill will literally display the same oxytocin levels when viewing photos of their partner and complete strangers. This diminishes the capacity of women to bond to their partners and also to those around her, which is essential for relationships and ultimately human flourishing. It also makes sexual activity less enjoyable for women, given that they typically secrete more oxytocin during sex than men, which suggests that the contraceptive pill not only eliminates the physical consequences of sex, but additionally the emotional consequences in exchange for feelings of pacified emptiness. Cortisol responses in women who are taking the contraceptive pill are also blunted relative to women who are not, because there exists like a sweet spot within the spectrum of stress levels in which you are not stressed to the point of anxiety, but also not relaxed enough to the point of boredom. So women who are not taking the contraceptive pill are able to reach and occupy that sweet spot with ease, enabling them to flourish by channeling their ambitions into a productive lifestyle. Conversely, women who are taking the contraceptive pill have a much harder time reaching that spot, let alone occupying it perpetually, and instead they're often bored and disinterested with their lifestyles. Not surprising then is that women on the pill are 50% more likely to be diagnosed with depression 6 months following examination when compared to women who are not on the pill. And I ask the Intro to Stats graduates to please lower their weapons, because this is not simply correlative, but rather a direct result of the neurochemical changes which are the cause of all other symptoms that we mentioned. You are your hormones, bottom line. So naturally, this raises questions as to why these effects are seemingly ignored by the mainstream narrative. Essentially, ignoring all allusions to malicious intent, research on the side effects of the contraceptive pill throughout the decades have been primarily focused on things that are explicitly detrimental to survival, such as blood clots, strokes, etc. So the cost benefit ostensibly concluded that all else is to be effectively ignored if it means that the incredibly lucrative mass sterilization of women should occur. And for what? What have we gained from this other than the residual estrogen in our tap water? We have liberated women from the defining characteristic of their existence, the miracle that is the capacity for childbirth. We have separated women from childbirth. We have separated sex from childbirth. And ultimately, we have combined men and women into this androgynous, miserable yeast, which prioritizes nothing above immediate gratification. Male-female relationships are inherently sexual. That much it's inexorable. But through our ignorance and pride, our desire to conquer nature, we have liberated women from womanhood. We have chemically retarded her ability to bond, to have relationships, to have families, and ultimately to be happy. Removing responsibility from sex, in turn, removed its meaning and its purpose in any capacity that transcends simply chasing dopamine, lowering it effectively to just masturbation with extra steps. She's no longer regarded as a potential mother, a wife, or a girlfriend. In the name of her own empowerment, she has been reduced purely to a sexual object, nothing more than just a sentient fleshlight. And as the intuition predicted many decades ago, the results have been a general lowering of moral standards throughout society, a rise in infidelity, a lessening respect for women by men. And my own intuition suggests that we're less than 10 years from seeing the coercive use of reproductive technologies by our own government. But it didn't matter. It was not enough to quell the collective desires of society. The society of days past, which longed to liberate themselves from self-restraint and ultimately, got us to this position. And unfortunately, the trends currently would suggest that it's been more or less crystallized. Then, given that women have been collectively reduced to purely sexual objects, is it any surprise that they are being mass marketed as such via advanced algorithms and technology? I've discussed the effects of pornography on the male brain and length, male spirit on my channel. I would go check that out if you haven't. But as we know, the female brain is much different from the male brain. With marriage, for example, feminists regard marriage to be a tyrannical relationship through which men can extort a woman for sex in exchange for resources, companionship, protection, etc. They'll tell you that, well, it's demeaning to put women in that position. It's actually more empowering for them to participate in sex work, OnlyFans, Pornhub, you name it, by which they get those same resources from men, but none of the love or commitment or anything like that. So in marriage, a woman is a wife, she's a mother, she is to be cherished and protected and provided for, but in sex work, she's empowered to be nothing more than an object, the sentient fleshlight. Women are even groomed into these lines of work at very young ages on social media platforms such as Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, whatever, in the name of empowerment. So in that name of empowerment, we have taught young girls that they should sacrifice their innocence and sexuality at the altar of insignificant wealth and temporary external gratification. And as you can imagine, this behavior leads to an increased likelihood of depression, substance abuse, suicide, problems in future relationships, including marriage, many other variables which are not conducive to flourishing. Or maybe they don't participate in it directly, but it's likely that their boyfriends and husbands are addicted to pornography, since roughly, here's the figure, 85% of men are. I believe it because it's true, and it's true because I believe it, which means that they're going to have to contend with the knowledge that their man is getting off to other women. Do feminists sympathize with that understandable insecurity? Do they sympathize with the woman who feels as though she cannot compete with the unrealistic, manufactured, and infinite supply of online pornography? No. Instead, they opt to publish articles discussing how, well, it's actually beneficial to your relationship to watch pornography together, alongside their articles about how reducing yourself to an object is empowering. Yet again, the feminists conform truth to desire. 56% of divorces are at least partially caused by pornography consumption. So how can we reasonably expect to move forward from this? The backbone of a society is a strong family unit. But through every aspect of our society, women are pressured through propaganda and misinformation to avoid having children. And if they do have children, they'll be made to feel shame if they choose to stay home with them, which the vast majority will if given the option, according to Pew Research. So the feminist tells women that she's a slave if she serves her family, but she's empowered if she serves a corporation. And while being a mother is not the most difficult job in the world, it's not, it's undeniably the most important. So true. And a feminist will become a lawyer and a doctor, good for her, but a mother will raise 2 of each, 3 of each. Our fertility rate, 5 of each. We'll see. But it's also worth noting that the mass sterilization of women has paved the way for gender theory, having altered the biochemistry of women, eliminated that which most obviously differentiated them from men, along with the social constructs and gender roles. Like, what's the obvious reason for which you cannot simply claim to be another gender? Everything has been eroded. Everyone is confused and isolated. We have sacrificed order in the name of freedom, freedom from our nature, and we are a people of yeast as a result. And this brings us to what I refer to as the paradoxical void of societal hypersexualization, where everything is sexualized, including children, yet marriage and fertility rates are alarmingly low. And not coincidentally, depression and suicide rates are at record highs. And whether you view it from a religious perspective or an evolutionary perspective, men and women were made to have children together. And unsurprisingly, when you structure society such that having families is discouraged relative to the elevated principles and priorities of endless and immediate pleasure, consumption, and comfort, all that fun stuff, men, and especially women, can't take it. They become numb, they become depressed, they become suicidal, and they just live without purpose. As Americans, we acknowledge the flawed nature of man. Our founding documents explicitly presuppose such to be the case. Man is corruptible, and without discipline, he will become a slave to desire, even to the point of deprioritizing truth and his or her own well-being. Unequivocally, the sexual revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race. Again, from either a religious or evolutionary perspective, sex brings men and women together to create life while simultaneously bonding them to each other so as to support that life. But man, with all of his pride, is deeply flawed. We thought that we could degrade sex by removing responsibility from it without serious consequence, but instead we removed its entire essence to where its significance is reduced to what is effectively masturbation with extra steps. We thought that we could mass market the results of that with the advanced algorithms and technology and continue living as before without serious consequence. However, the intuitive predictions of those in previous generations whose judgment has not been clouded by desire have wholly been vindicated. Our sexual desires as a society, which are our most powerful desires, have been co-opted to reorient our ambition towards a life just completely devoid of meaning. But the truth is that we're not our jobs, we're not our wealth, we're not our preferences for fast food chains and Netflix programs. We are the blood of those who came before us and sacrificed before us. You have been blessed with a life that is the direct result of decisions that stem back thousands of years. We are human beings. We are people. That is our nature. To violate that in the name of hedonism, consumerism, nihilism, or whichever perceived and perverted ism is the most appropriate, that is the ultimate denial of our humanity. Thank you.
Absolutely excellent. Can we get like a epic in chat? Can
Let's
we get
go,
like
John!
salutes in chat? Salutes in chat for John. So epic, so epic. To riff off of that, John, before we open it up to the general Q&A, it's so profound that you, unlike so many conservatives, have got this figured out about the nature of liberalism. And we've been talking about this for a while now, but when you take liberalism, which essentially teaches that there is no inherent meaning behind nature. There is no teleological end to which your nature is ordered, which is, of course, the basis of Christianity and Aristotelian Thomism, as you referenced. Then you have the inevitability of contraception, because natural processes are just these are disruptions to the fulfillment, the self-fulfillment of the abstract individual. But of course, then when you have contraception, which allows for, sex without any consequences, without the natural end of sex, you receive mass promiscuity because you have the rewards of sex without any of the actual natural consequences of it. But of course, when you disrupt the natural ends to which sex is oriented, then you have abortion, because sex becomes, from promiscuity, you then get abortion, because sex does not then become about procreation. And so procreation actually becomes an unnecessary, unadded, and inconvenient side effect of it. And of course, from abortion, if we understand then that parents have, that there's nothing inherent about the family that means that we need to have children, then of course you get things like gay marriage, because the family doesn't become about raising children anymore. It becomes about self-gratification, fulfillment, and etc. And of course, from gay marriage, then that means that there are no inherent gender roles. And so of course you get something like transgenderism. So we see that this is all just like the continuous logic of liberalism. And at a certain point, you have to have it, either all of it is okay, or none of it is okay. You have to either completely turn towards human dignity rather than this abstract idea of human rights, and understand that we are endowed by our creator with a purpose and an aim that we must end to, or you get basically rampant liberalism and transgenderism and pedophilia and whatever. I mean, the whole bag. So, you know,
So true.
rip off of that.
So true. That's why I kind of, I'm very careful when I say these things to my audience, because I know that probably about a third of them, maybe half of them, don't really get it yet. And you know, if I like criticize John Locke, if they're relatively well read, they'll be like, wait a minute, don't we like John Locke? And it's like, no, we actually don't. But I can't just like come out and say that, because then they'll think I'm like a commie or something. So we just gotta ease them into it. So
yeah, totally. Okay, let's open it up to Q&A. Brilliant, super big brain take. None of that knuckle dragging, like liberal apologia, just like straight.
I saw that someone like commented on the post. They were like, this is just going to be Democrats are the real sexists. I was like, that like made me a danger to myself. But they
it's so true. But when you accept liberalism, that's the only logic conservatives have.
no, yeah, literally, like this is just gonna. I wanted to comment so badly on that, because like they're just gonna. This is gonna just be Democrats are the real sexists. I want to be like, no. It's gonna be I'm the real sexist. Relax. Don't worry.
That's funny. Okay. Yeah. All right. So we have a lot of people raising their hand now. Do we want to remove the pin, remove the spotlight? I don't want it to get anybody.
I think we're going to leave the pin on John, just so we don't have people's faces showing. So yeah. Okay. Anyway, so I guess we'll continue. And the first person to raise their hand was Eric. So Eric, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. I'm really hyped right now. John, I just want to say, I have been waiting to speak with you for 2.5 years, since October 2018. I am your biggest fan. I'm a high school student in LA, but you're talking about the stuff that needs to be said, and I really appreciate you for that. You're one of my biggest role models of all time. So now I'm going to get to the question.
I appreciate you've been here since I'm inclined. What video was the first video you saw? October 2018. That was your beginning. Yeah.
Probably. It might have been one of the refuting I know you were talking, it was right around Christmas time, actually. It was a little past October probably, but
that was probably like why liberals hate Christmas.
Yeah, that was one of them. But dude, this is just, okay, this is amazing. But so as far as leading a fulfilling life, LA is, you know, it's a dry spell out here. There's nobody that's not, you know, on the pill or whoring themselves out, for lack of a better term. I'm getting out of LA, but I mean, how do you raise kids in an environment where your government is trying to prevent fertility, and with this vaccine and everything, you need it to go back to school? What do you do in this situation?
Assuming that you're speaking specifically about LA or California, I guess I would reject the premise. I would just say you don't, which isn't to say that you don't raise kids. It's just to say like, get out of California. And I had this take. One of the good things about the Content Kitchen having been closed for like 2 months is I can just really think about things and let it sort of like ferment. I've been developing this take where, and I have no evidence to suggest that this is true, except for my pure feelings, that the destruction of California was almost a psyop to like demoralize the American patriot, because California used to be like the most beautiful. Everyone wanted to go there. It was so awesome. And then a few decades of, you know, liberal policies got it all messed up. And so, so now it is what it is. But I would get out of there. Honestly, I would come to Texas. Texas is probably about 20 years away from being full blue, but there's enough people here who are just like intrinsically based that you could just kind of like move here and you'll be okay. Like I'm up in Fort Worth and everyone's super nice. Everyone gets it. Like, I don't know. I would definitely get out of California though.
One of my cousins just moved to Houston, but
okay.
My family's getting to Arizona. Are we safe there? Are we safe there in a conservative county?
Yeah,
Actually,
probably.
Paul Gosar is our representative. So
We love Paul Gosar, don't we?
yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's a good move, but you definitely can't, because even, I don't know, you're from California, so your family's probably there, but I'm from Michigan, which is actually a pretty good state. The only reason Gretchen Whitmer got into office is because they put weed on the ballot. And then everyone turned out because they wanted to be degenerate. And so then she got put into office. But other than that, she never would have gotten in. But I like the Midwest. I'm probably going to go back to Michigan when I start multiplying, just because I feel like I had a really good experience growing up there. So I don't know if I'll stay in Texas long term, but Texas is a good place to raise a family. Like I drive around, I go through these little areas and I see like these young families, and it's like really cool. So yeah, and everyone's really nice too. You don't get that in like liberal cities. I grew up in Southeast Michigan, which was like, not because no one goes to Detroit, but there's still like the white liberal area. So like people are just mean. This is like, just a normal area. Everyone's nice. So I would recommend it. Texas, Midwest, or go off the grid, go to Idaho. I know a lot of people going to Idaho.
Is private school the move though to raise kids, or homeschooling, or religious?
I would say homeschooling if you can.
Homeschooling? Okay.
John Doyle, do you hate the Antichrist? What a ridiculous question. The Antichrist. I should go get the Tech 9. I'll barricade it. I hate the Antichrist. Yeah, I would say homeschooling. A lot of people, and I don't know anything about homeschooling, but I know that a lot of people sort of mischaracterize it as like, your kid's not going to be, properly socialized, which compared to how they're being socialized now with the masks and everything is kind of funny. But homeschooling properly carried out is like, moms and sort of these communities of kids who are all like being homeschooled, and they all like learn together and grow up together, which actually fosters like a really nice group of kids for them to be involved with. It's not, and I know people who have done it improperly, which is just like, literally like, okay, all day, you're just in your room doing like online coursework, and like that's not what it's supposed to be, and that's not what it should be. But when done properly, I would say that's probably optimal. And then when they get to a point where it's like, high school, then you can probably send them to public school and you'll be okay. But there's a window where they're very impressionable, and their brains are very plastic, that you really just don't want that sort of indoctrination occurring. Because if the seed gets planted in there, what can happen, and what often does happen, is they will then side with and trust those authority figures over the authority of you being the parent, which is not good.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful to see the growth of your platform over these years, especially a non-establishment, non-turning point cringe platform. So,
dude, everyone's been giving me so much crap because I go on Blaze shows sometimes.
Yeah,
now.
with Dave Rubin.
Okay, that was. I shouldn't have to explain myself. I'll do it to you because you're nice, but I will explain myself.
Thank you.
Clown pilling Dave Rubin is funny because it makes him look outdated. That's why the look on my face is like, oh no, he's gonna do it. And he's gonna get so trolled. And then also, I mean, that meme gets a little controversial depending on where you see it. And so like for him to present that, I was like, he doesn't even know what he's saying. That was hilarious to me. And so that's why. And then a bunch of people who are like schizophrenic and autistic are just like, John Doyle is doing shows with gay people now, which means that he's an atheist. And I was just like, you need to go outside. So anyways, I will never explain myself again to anyone except you.
But thank you. That's an honor, John. Fantastic to talk to you.
Guys.
Okay, so next, everyone, please keep your questions short. So there's a lot. I see 11 hands right now. We want to make sure we have time for everyone to get their question in. So next, Stephen, go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello? All right, epic. Okay, my question was actually about the last thing you said in your speech, saying like people were saying this speech was gonna be Democrats are the real sexist. Well, I'm the real sexist. That was funny. But my question was like, it's kind of ironic how like conservatives, when they're trying to like debunk feminism, to like be like in support of it, like, no, this is why the wage gap isn't true. Like, this is why it's great that women are working office jobs instead of raising children. It's kind of like everything conservatives been doing is like completely counterproductive to what they're actually trying to achieve.
So true. Yeah, they accept and concede the left's moral framework and then try to use it against them. whether that's like with what you said, or even like with now, the Dems are the real transphobes because they don't like Caitlin Bennett. I seriously, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this. I feel like, and this, I can't say this either on my channel because people who are older than our age group don't like to hear this at all. But I seriously feel like I'm dealing with children, like watching baby boomers engage in political discourse. It's all based on, well, remember when you called me this name a couple years ago? Well, guess who gets to call you that name now? And it's like, my son's probably going to be transgender because you guys just can't act like you have an IQ above 92 for 5 minutes when you go and you check the voting boxes. It's incredible. Even, I won't say this, I was going to throw a family member under the bus. We love him. But yeah, they don't get it. And I can't hate on boomers too much because they are useful, because that which defines the boomer is simply an inability to accept that things have changed. So it's bad when you're trying to get them to realize that Ronald Reagan is dead and he wasn't even that great in the first place. But it's good because they'll be like, gender theory? Nah, there's only 2 of them. Like they just won't buy into that. So, you know, it has goods and bads, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. I'm a massive fan. I have the original Heck Off Call Me baseball tee from the first merch drops. That's one of my prized.
Dude, that's epic. We have merch coming again soon with designs such as Science is Gay, Cope Analyst. We're very excited about it.
I'm gonna max out my parents' credit cards on that.
We'd love to see it.
Okay, next question, Benjamin. Go ahead and unmute.
Yep. Hey, John, huge fan. I'm on your Gilded and everything. So 1, when the heck is the next video going to be? And 2, are you the quote unquote secret contributor on the American Populist Union?
To answer your first question, literally, I don't know. I'm waiting for this this sign to be delivered. Oh, wait, actually, here's a picture of it right now. It's done. Not even kidding. All right, you guys are the first people literally to ever see this ever.
Now you showed it to us 2 weeks ago.
That's what it's going to look like. That's like the actual sign. And so that's going to go on the wall. I think that's pretty sick. It matches the rest of the aesthetic. Dude, that's so cool. So that's going to get shipped out tomorrow. That'll be delivered. So hopefully, definitely next week. If it's not next week in the studio, I have an idea for a street video that I think would be pretty cool. The premise is asking Black people if the N-word warrants violence. We're just going to see what happens. It's going to be great. And so yeah, we'll do that at the very least. And then your second question with the APU, speaking totally transparently, I think so. I don't even really know. Vince talked to me about it and he was like, dude, you know, do you want to be a contributor? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I mean, you've already stole all my takes, so I kind of contributed that way, right? And he was like, no, I mean, like, we want to, like, you know, clip your stuff and put it on there. I was like, okay, cool. So like, yeah, I guess they're gonna, but I'm not like actively involved with it.
See, I was hoping, because like my birthday was like a couple weeks ago, or like last week, and I was like, please put out a Doyle video for my birthday, and you didn't. So like, I'm kind of heartbroken about that, and I might unsubscribe.
You didn't let me know. That's on you. I definitely would have. You know me. I would have.
I know.
It's just a miscommunication. It's okay. You know, communication is the foundation of a healthy relationship.
Okay, next question, Sam. Go ahead and unmute.
Okay, awesome. Hello, you can hear me?
Yes.
All right, awesome. John, this has been amazing so far. Thank you so much. I literally just found out about you like less than a week ago through the Bruin Republicans like newsletter. So like that has been a blessing that has like changed my life, I feel like. And like I really enjoy your channel. And I guess the question I'm trying to say, like going just back to like a general theme of addictions, like, you know, porn, I know, speaking from personal experience, a lot of people I know have struggled with addiction, and honestly, to be honest, like myself included, and it's gotten really bad during COVID too, to where nearly almost every single person my age has some kind of addiction, be it porn, be it some kind of drug, be it some kind of thing. And so it's hard to like I try to be an optimist all the time, but it's hard to like, you know, how do we get out of this? How do we stop like a generation from being screwed up by, you know, porn, by drug addictions, by just these addictions that just destroy ourselves and destroy society? Maybe that's too broad.
No, it's not. I'm trying to think of how to navigate this question without saying anything naughty. We need to develop a hatred of anything that threatens that which we love. We sort of right now like recognize what our priorities are and like what we love, and then we look at things that are bad and we're just like, free society, it happens. Speaking very, very clearly, we can easily the path to fix things is easy. Actually implementing is difficult. Really what it comes down to is just occupying institutions and then wielding power to crush these people, politically speaking, of course. And a lot of people on the right are hesitant to wield power and to even think about power, because their interpretation of the founding is like, we agreed to sort of pretend that power doesn't exist and we can all have freedom. And then our country has sort of become what it is now, maybe because of their framework, maybe because we deviated from that. That's up for debate. But as far as addiction in general, you could even start like with pornography, for example. If you just regulated pornography the same way that you regulate child pornography, like usage is gone down by at least 50%, or even just with children, if you want to take that angle, like, okay, well, I don't care if adults do it, but if kids do it, that's fine. Requiring like an ID or a credit card or something like that would be good. It's just really a matter of getting people in who are willing to be convicted and actually wield power effectively, which we haven't seen in the Republican Party. I mean, there was Donald Trump, he had his faults, and even any like Congress people, I really couldn't think of one off the top of my head. So I think that the young people are waking up to this, and I know a lot of people my age, people who are even older, but who get it, who are just gonna kind of recreationally run for Congress within the next 5 years. And I think they'll win because they're going to be running in districts where there's really no competition. And all you have to do is like primary. All you have to do to primary these older people is just be high energy. Like that's it. You literally just have to be younger and more high energy than the like 55-year-old person who everybody like recognizes their name, but like they have no original ideas, they have no energy, they're not getting anything done. But 98% of them remain incumbent for whatever reason or whatever the stat is. So yeah, occupying the institutions and wielding power, I would say, would be the move.
Thank you.
Okay, next person, Kai, please go ahead and unmute.
Oh, this isn't Kai. This can't be Kai.
Hello, Mr. Doyle. How are you?
Is this the Kai?
I don't know. It may be.
Are you wearing suspenders?
No.
But it's
No.
that Kai, right?
I have no idea. No, I don't wear suspenders.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Wrong Kai. Go ahead.
All right. Well, great speech. I'm a big fan too, longtime fan. My question though is, because we know that it is becoming increasingly more and more difficult to self-identify as both someone on the left and a Christian, and also that conservative values are influenced primarily by Christian values, right? Do we either, to find the path to best save America, do we either propagate Christian values as a means to enhance true conservatism, or enhance true conservative values as a means to enforce Christianity, thus also saving America? And I know you talk about politics way more than religion on your show, but do you think the other approach is just as valid or just as useful?
I would say the political approach is probably more viable, because people have sort of understood that they're going to be told competing ideas about politics, but people are very sort of like, oh, don't try to brainwash me when especially if they're atheists. I think that frankly, the country has become so demonically possessed that the idea that there could be this like Christian awakening by the efforts of men, like as far as that's what's presented first, I don't know if that, and I feel like even saying that's not a good idea. Maybe I'm possessed by a demon. I think it would be better to present it through the lens of authentic conservatism. And if you could literally eliminate, or at least reduce in great capacity, that demonic influence in society, you could liberate people from like what we're talking about with vices. That's demonic. You could liberate people from that and basically allow their souls to be cleansed to a degree to where that truth could, I think, be resonance with them. So I would say that that's probably the move. Dude, I think I summoned a demon the other night. Not even kidding. Apparently, if you like do a lot of research on demons, they'll like show up.
For the record, John, I don't think you're possessed, but thank you.
I don't either, but I swear the one that starts with an M, I think was in my closet the other night. Like, not even capping.
Okay, next question. James, go ahead and unmute.
Oh my gosh, it's me. Okay. I wanted to say first that I showed you to my parents last summer when you made the video, How We Let America Die and How We Take America Back. And I just want to tell you that they thought you were a genius.
Let's go.
So that, you know, they think you're a genius.
It was either going to be the genius or the he doesn't get it.
No, okay. That's first. And then also awesome that you're in Fort Worth gang. And okay.
You're in Fort Worth?
Relative. I'm a little bit outside it, but you know, basically Fort Worth. That's the closest city.
Don't dox yourself.
I'm within 100 miles of you, just to let you know. Okay. On your Instagram, your very first picture is you with Jordan Peterson, and you have a picture of his book. And I wanted to know if you've gotten his latest book, or if you're not going to read it, or if you want to read it, or you know, if you knew he released his second book. Because I have mine right next to me. Now here's the problem, though. It's endorsed by Dave Rubin. It's endorsed by Dave Rubin.
We'll both hold our copies of the book, and then we'll both look at the North Star at the same time, and it'll be like we're hanging out IRL.
Oh my gosh.
Is there a, he's got like a sound. Oh yeah. Jordan Peterson is universally revered. Yeah. See, that's the thing. Dave Rubin, is this going to be put on YouTube, or is this going to be shared?
I don't know. We'll talk to you before we release it, if anything. Okay, we won't release it without your consent. So
well, Dave Rubin has basically, you know, made a career for himself off the idea that people should be able to talk, and that's great. And he's got a big platform doing that, and that's wonderful. We're big Dave fans, but Jordan Peterson, regardless of what you think about him, is like a genius. He's a classical liberal, which is like cringe, but he's like very smart. I feel like he's too smart to be a classical liberal. And so he sort of like teamed up with Dave when he got involved in this this like right-wing movement, which was honestly, we kind of adopted him because he was never intending to be political. His whole thing was like, you know, free speech. I won't be compelled. And then we were just kind of like, based, and so we kind of brought him in. And then, you know, he started talking about hierarchies, and then a bunch of Nazis were like, yo, based. And then so anyways, yeah, I do have the book. I haven't read it yet. I have a lot of books. I kind of like, I have this very self-destructive habit where I impulse buy books in like literally like pallets.
Yes.
And then I bought them, so I have to read them. So like, yeah, I'm in between a few things, but I do intend to read it. And yeah, the Dave Rubin endorsement is, you know, expected, but it is what it is.
Okay, I have one last quick thing. I had to sit through one of the worst experiences of my life, and that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I had to go to this award ceremony because I'm graduating, and I had to sit through 2 hours of like these two girls getting all these scholarships and all these awards. And then, I don't know, they're just like, they're not the greatest people, if you get me. Not because they're not nice to people, but because of their belief system. And it's just like so awful to have to like hear all these people, and it's not just those two, but it's mainly them, all these people getting scholarships and all these people, they're being advanced. And I'm not like jealous or anything. It's not that at all. It's just like, is there any like silver lining to the situation at all?
Yeah, the silver lining is that in 5 years, you're going to be, by every metric, just better off than them, which I only know because you're a fan of my channel, and that's exactly what happened to me. Me and women go way back. Everyone thinks that like I'll go on Blaze shows and I'm like, you know, teasing the girls because like I have a little crush on them. Anyone who knows me knows I talk to all women that way. I have like whatever is the closest you can get to contempt without being contagious. Not women, but like young women. I find them vapid. And like when I was in high school, all the girls like not like hated me, like, you know, I couldn't get girls, like I was an incel, but they were just like, they did not like my energy because I was walking around arguing with people about politics. When it was like very liberal school, I was always goofing off in class with the boys, you know, putting memes up, just total, you know, just raw male energy. But I was also very
trolling.
So like I did better than them at school despite not trying. I outscored them on SATs, and I graduated with like the same honors they did. and they just got like so mad. And then, I go and I become like a conservative e-boy, and it was just like they are seething. Like I get screenshots sent to me from like all these group chats, like he's doing what? Like he has this many followers, and I'm just like, keep coping, keep seething, just like I want to drink your tears. So that's the silver lining, that if you stay true to your beliefs and your convictions, all these like arbitrary, and that's really what it is, giving women scholarships. Come on, like that doesn't mean that they're better than you. That just means that like the system decided that they need a little bit of, they need a little push. So that's
I always make the excuse because the our number 3 in class, she scored a triple-digit SAT score. Her friend would not tell me what it was, but she said it was less than 1,000. So
that is literally below average. That's incredible.
That's way below. It's like, I think 1050 is the average. Anyways, thank you so much.
What was your score, just out of curiosity?
Oh, what's my score?
Yeah.
1380.
Retard.
Okay, all right.
Whoa, what'd you get?
All right. Wait, stop.
1430.
All the preparation I did was one pre-test or like one test on Khan Academy the night before. Okay.
Yeah, but if you were red pilled on the SAT question, you would know that practicing for the SAT doesn't actually.
The letters messed me up.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
we need
get
to
him out of here. Get him out of here.
We need to. Okay.
If everyone could
20
keep
questions, so
their,
we need to speed it up. Yeah.
So everyone keep their questions limited to one question, and if we have time at the end, we can go another round. So please, only one question. Next person up is Gio. Gio, you can go ahead and
Hello.
Yeah.
1 2 1 2.
What's up?
All right. So I got a question for you. How do you research because out of all the YouTubers that I've seen when it comes to these kinds of things, you seem to be the most willing to get it as close to factual as possible. I mean, I'm learning biochemistry at my university. I'm about to graduate. Only thing I have left is physical chemistry. I've taken all the bio sources, and you seem to be the only one that actually gets it as close as possible to the real thing, I guess I should say. What do you do to do that? I want to make sure everyone here understands that, because I try my best in your server to spread this, but you seem to be the voice of reason here, so please.
I read a lot, and I sort of retain that information, and like not what's the one in psychology where you can recall it but you can't come up with it organically, whatever. That's kind of like I'll think about something and I'll be like, oh, there was a data point somewhere in like some book I read, and then I'll dig it out, or I have that saved somewhere in like a Google Doc, like a source that had corroborative figures, things like that. It's just kind of like, I'm not kidding when I say like every waking moment, if I'm not like doing something else, I'm like reading something like political or something that is downstream from that. And so I just ingest a lot of information, and if I can retain 5% of that, it'll end up in a video if it's topical. So
sorry that this is the second question, but what motivates you to do that? Because I know what motivates me to do that. It's my love for truth. But what motivates you to do that? My
love for the people.
Okay.
I'm frankly less concerned with the truth.
Oh no worries. I get about that. I understand that. That's why you're in politics and I'm in science.
So true.
Okay, next question, Jacob. Go ahead and unmute.
All right, testing 1 2 3.
Hello.
All right, hello. Longtime fan since 2018.
Let's go.
Couldn't tell, I'm obviously younger.
We love the boy. What are you, 14?
How
old?
14, basically.
14 and husky. We love to see it.
Slightly less husky, but essentially my question, this is for myself and also sort of a commentary on it, but going to liberal.
Okay, big guy, we need you to, why don't you type your question in chat? Yeah, you're having mic troubles, my man.
While he's doing that, we can move on to the next question. Brandon, go ahead and unmute.
Testing. Is this all right? Okay, so what books do you read for the stuff about the neurochemicals and psychology that you reference a lot?
Darren Beatty put me onto a bunch of them, but I couldn't recall off the top of my head. A lot of them too are on like obscure blog posts that'll like redirect to different studies. The ones that were referenced in the anti-pornography dissertation came from a few different books. The majority of that research was aggregated by, oh, what's his name? Gary something. He had a book called like Your Brain on Porn, I think. Gary Wilson. That basically influenced like the whole video as far as the science behind it. But even like understanding you can read something that isn't even like, you know, politically based or like based politically, and then still understand like the neurochemistry and how it would implicate it in politics. Like if dopamine is secreted when an individual does something which they perceive to be beneficial to their survival, and that's like their driving, you know, sort of a reward thing, then when people wear masks and submit to these systems of perceived authority in society, and they also happen to be weak people who are left oriented, that like makes sense to me that they would be like secreting dopamine because they recognize that their best chance of survival is to go with the system instead of against it. Whereas people who are more right-leaning, more independent, more confident, conservative people were just like, no, you guys are dumb, so we're gonna be just fine without you. So yeah.
Okay, next question, Emmanuel. Also, nobody else is allowed to raise their hands now. We have 12 people still waiting to ask questions, and we're already at 7:10. So please, no more hand raising after this. So Emmanuel, go ahead and unmute.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Nice. Mr. Doyle, the most based man on the internet.
True.
Let's go. So, my question is, what is the best book that you've read in the past couple months?
Do you want best in terms of what I enjoyed or best in terms of what I thought was like most beneficial to my brain?
I'll take best as in which one you enjoyed the most.
I just got around to reading Bronze Age Mindset. You might have, you know, you can even tell, I didn't even realize I did this. You can tell in the speech, I mentioned yeast people twice.
Oh my God. Nice. All right. Have a nice night.
Thanks, man.
Okay, next question, Joshua, go ahead and unmute.
Thank you so much. Mr. Doyle, when I first like discovered you like a month ago, and I was like really like I was like more of a center right, and now I just been radicalized basically. Thank you. But but I'm from Canada, right? And so we have more than two systems, more than two parties. And so scenario for you. There's 6 parties. There's a conservative party, but they're mostly centrist or neocons, and then they have a really big chance of winning. And there's another party called PPC, and they're actually conservative and they have a lot of conservative values, but they're not going to win at all. Not a chance in the world. But if you vote for the PPC, the liberals will win, and then I can't watch you ever again. Because of Bill C10. You did a video with Andrew about that one. But yeah, and then if you vote for the PPC or you vote for the conservatives, they're gonna win. So which one do you vote for?
I feel like I'm financially obligated to say whichever one lets you keep watching me. But pragmatically, I don't know how Canada works. You guys are just like snow. But couldn't you hypothetically just get the bad conservatives out of office?
Well, we had a leadership election and they elected the wrong person. He's kind of really he just caves to the left like a lot, and like I'm having time really trusting him to actually present conservative values to Parliament. And so we can't really get the bad conservatives out of office unless there's a whole another leadership election, and then yeah, it's not going to work. So it's only these 2 people, literally.
Yeah. Also, your culture is so much different than America's culture. Like, I think America is basically center right. Canada's probably center left, frankly.
Left, very, very left.
Yeah. So I don't know. You're probably, as my French teacher would say, screwed, blued, and tattooed there, big guy.
Okay. Thank you, though. Appreciate it. Love your show.
Thanks, man.
Okay, next question, Cullen, please go ahead and unmute.
Hey, John, what's up? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I do want to say one more thing on that question, though. I feel so badly because I radicalized him. He looks to me for the answers. He's like, what do I do? And I'm like, I don't know. So my apologies for that. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, what's up? So, I've been waiting to ask this question since August 28th is when I first DM'd you. So my whole life, I've always wanted to be in the military, and I'm in high school ROTC right now, and I'm doing really good. But the issue with it is, if I go into the military, I'll be obligated to stay. And right now, I'm not sure, based off the political climate and based off everything that's going on, if going in would really be my best option right now.
Yeah. I would say that the reason I assume that you want to go into the military is because you're a strong man who loves his country and you want to utilize that skill set and that will to do good for the country. Unfortunately for us, that's sort of outdated despite the nobility of it. I would say that if I were you, I would not under any circumstances go into the military because our freedoms are not being threatened by by foreign enemies. They're being threatened by domestic enemies who have occupied our institutions. But the skill set that you can acquire in the military is very useful. So I would say either go in whatever capacity allows you to get that skill set without having to, put your life on the line or give too much time. Or I would say don't do it, go into skilled trades or something, and then every weekend go train with people who already have that skill set so you get the same thing. Like you can go, there's like this sort of like boomer CPL classes where everybody learns how to shoot a pistol from 25 feet away. Michigan's crazy with this. I don't know where you're from. We have militias in Michigan that like could literally like 6 guys could like SEAL Team 6 their way into or out of any situation. Like they do like very, very intense training. You can get into that, but you have to kind of like climb the ladder. So I would recommend that as far as kind of getting that skill set without having to go die in the sand so that Muslim children can learn about gender theory.
Well, I'm down here in North Carolina. Sure. Yeah, we have a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. Yeah, and that was basically my question. All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too, man.
Okay, next question. Other Joshua, go ahead and unmute.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your time, but I've been kind of struggling ever since watching your anti-pornography dissertation, realized that I have been addicted to pornography, and I've really been trying to get out of that. Do you have any ways to do that? I mean, I've been trying to just get off in any way I can, banning it, getting rid of my phone, things like that. But it just hasn't been working as well as I've wanted it to. Is there anything else you can say to that?
Do you live with parents? Do you live by yourself?
I live with my parents. I'm still in high school. So
okay. If I were you, I would literally write down whatever 3 locations are like the most common for you succumbing to that, and then literally just stay out of those locations for 2 weeks. So like even if it's in your room, you get into that routine of like every night. There's even memes about it, like, boys when it's 11 p.m. on a school night opens up the private tab. If it's there, sleep on the couch for 2 weeks. Tell your mom that you're trying to like realign your spine or something. Just make something up. They won't care. Or if you know that you're always using your laptop to do it or your phone to do it, this will do you well too, even independently of the addiction, just detoxing from the technology. Give all your internet accessing devices to your mom or your dad and just be like, hey, I think I'm spending too much time on the Facebooks. And she'll be like, no, I know. And then just say, let me only, use the computer for schoolwork in front of you. So, I'm not like, on YouTube or Facebook or whatever. And she'll be like, oh, okay. And she'll be none the wiser. Or, you could just have that conversation with them. I understand the generational divide, which is why I don't always recommend that. If you tell your parents you have a pornography addiction, they're going to think that it's like heroin addiction. Like they just don't really understand how we've been exploited and the effects that it's had on us. So I would say psychologically viewing pornography as a weapon against you that is like literally making you weaker as outlined through the video, and then viewing it as an enemy, viewing yourself as something vulnerable and worthy of protection. Find a picture of yourself when you were like a toddler, put that up in your room. Find a picture of your great-grandfather, put that up too. Know that he is frowning upon you every time you do something like that. Know that you are damaging that little boy in the photo every time you do something like that. That's really important, I think, sort of recognizing that it's like literally a weapon that you are allowing to be used on you. staying busy is good. A lot of times it just happens out of boredom. You're like, yeah, I can watch porn, like, whatever. I'm not doing anything else. Getting out of the house, bike riding, longboarding is fun. Especially now, it should be easier because it's summer. But like literally, just like getting away from it, because you can't get on it if you're not on the internet. So just finding like anything else that you could be doing is important. And then leaving technology with parents, not in your room at nighttime, and whatever. That's just kind of like a summary. I think I mentioned that too at the end of the video. That'd be like the rough outline. And there are programs too, online that could walk you through that. People have emailed me with some of like easy peasy method or something. I've never looked into that, but people say it's a good idea. So I think I put that in the link to the video. But yeah, it is like incomprehensibly difficult to be a young man growing up, and no one talks about that, but everyone knows implicitly that they're struggling with it. But since it's so collectivized, everyone just sort of makes jokes about it, and they're sort of like unwilling to acknowledge the suffering that it causes. So it's good that you realize that, especially when you're young enough to where you can reverse a lot of what's happened to your brain. I feel really badly for guys that are emailing me. They're like 29 years old. They've been watching it for like the last 20 years, and it's like, dude, they're gonna be scarred for like the rest of their life. But like you, as ostensibly like an 18, 19-year-old, 17-year-old, whatever, like you'll be okay. But yeah, that's like the summary of it, I guess.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, man.
Okay, next question, Walker, go ahead and unmute.
What's up? Is my mic working?
Yeah.
Let's go. I'm really excited to talk to you, man. I've been watching you since like late December. Like, man, I'm really excited. I'm kind of nervous too. Like, I'm a high schooler. I'm from Oklahoma. I'm not too far from you, though. I'm very, very, very based, of course. You pretty much radicalized me, and I'm thankful for that. I like to say that you got me out of a kind of a bad place in my life. Like COVID hit, and even before then, I was pretty cringe, not gonna lie.
We've all been there.
Yeah, I was heavily addicted to porn and stuff. Now I think it's illegal. Porn, no, it should be illegal. Porn is cringe. I gained like 20 pounds over, quarantine, which sucked. And I watched you, like I said, in mid to late 2020. And at first I was like my libertarian phase. So I think the first video I watched was the political compass one. I can't remember for sure. And you put the correct option, of course, which is to ban pornography. And I was like, what? This dude wants to ban porn? Disgusting. And then I immediately went to whatever I was doing. But, over the time,
whatever you're doing, did you own me? Were you just like, I'll show him, and you opened up the tab?
No, I think I actually left an angry comment, something along the lines of, you don't understand libertarian ideology. How dare you?
That's the problem, is that I do understand it. But anyways.
You're pretty much the reason why I'm not depressed anymore. Depressed in like quotes and stuff, whatever liberals can come up with, pretty much. I lost almost 20 pounds, so I'm pretty much down back again. I've been going to the gym and stuff, and
white boy summer imminence.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to you. Like, you're pretty much the reason why I don't hate life anymore.
Thank you. Wow.
like I'm really grateful to you. I don't know how many people are, but I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of people who are out there who are really, really grateful to you, and you've probably helped them get out of a dark place too.
It's crazy. I've had experiences, like I gave a speech at University of Arizona, and this like 6'5" husky guy in a red polo like just came up to me after the speech, and he was like, dude, can I just say I love you? And he was like, telling me about like how I've changed his life. And I get that, like I'm like an online personality or whatever, but I'm like literally just a person. And so I was just kind of like, dude, that's like epic. And he's like, can I give you a hug? And I was like, yeah. So this dude is now known in the HOC expanded universe as the Red Polo Chad. And like, dude's getting his life together. And that's the problem, is like so many young men just don't have, even like if their dad's a good dad, like they don't have like sort of the necessary conversations for young men to flourish in the 21st century. So I'm like not even that smart, but I think I have like, a general idea of like what we should and should not be doing. And so I try to broadcast that. And yeah, it's been really helpful to a lot of people. So that's pretty epic.
Yeah, but once again, thank you so much. Got me out of my addictions and whatnot.
So
Things in chat?
yeah, pretty much my question is, so back in my libertarian phase, heard of this guy named Calvin Coolidge, one of the presidents. I thought he was pretty cool. What do you think of Calvin Coolidge?
I like Calvin Coolidge. I'm a Coolidge appreciator.
Based and red pilled, cringing. I have it on a notepad. I'm gonna say the full thing actually right now. What do you think of Calvin Coolidge? Based and red pilled or cringed and blue pilled?
Based in red pilled.
Of course. Yeah, I like the guy. I still do. He was pretty cool back when he was still alive. He's not alive anymore, if you couldn't tell.
Really?
Yeah. Laughing at my own jokes. I'm
Literally,
so funny.
Trump. This is the first I'm hearing this. Wow. Amazing life.
Okay, we have to
Yeah.
move on to the next question. Thank you, Walker.
All right, thank you.
Next person is Abdio. You can go ahead and unmute.
Hello, based. All right. First of all, I just want to say thank you as well. You took me out of my libertarian phase. Based, let's go. Simpler question. A long time ago, you had a Discord, but you had to close it. Is there any like plan of opening it back up? Is it open?
It's the meme of the Discord employee talking right now. Just so you're gonna try to subvert that ban, are you? Yeah,
I'm actually a Fed.
Yeah, it literally got nuked for no reason. Along with a lot of other like big right-wing Discord servers at the day of the storming of the Capitol or whatever. So Gilded is a temporary solution. We're working on getting like another Discord server, like something on there, because HOC wasn't banned. I was banned even though I was never on there because I'm Discord illiterate. But yeah, there is plans to get something like that up again pretty soon. They're working on it. So
John Doyle a boomer? Question mark.
Okay, next question.
Next question, Alex. Go ahead and unmute.
Hey, what's up, John? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, how's it going, man? Actually, just going based off the last question, I've been a subscriber to Hawk.com for I think like 2 months now. It's still stuck as applied. So I don't know if you can maybe tell somebody to maybe check that out.
Oh, in the Gilded?
Yeah, in Gilded. It's been like 2 months. I've been on the team.
What's your I don't know if send me an email and I'll pass it along to them because yeah, they get
I sent you something on I think Instagram, but it's in Reverie, INREVERIE.
Can you send it to my email because I get too many on Instagram?
Okay. Well, anyway, I'm super excited. It's an honor to speak to you, and I just want to say thanks for your incredible takes. And I think you're a super important person in the political scene. I'm very grateful to have you around.
Thank you. I appreciate that. How kind.
Next question, Tyler. Go ahead and unmute.
Hi, John. Big fan of the show. I've quit porn since your long dissertation. Really appreciative of that. And just wanted to ask you what your thoughts on reversed gender roles, stay-at-home dads taking on domestic roles. Do you think that goes against our nature, or is it an acceptable option?
I do. I don't know if I would apply it universally because I understand that circumstances can be different, but I think that two things can happen in general. Well, two things will happen in general. I think that women over time, and this can be reflected empirically as well, begin to sort of resent men who are like the stay-at-home dads or whatever, because the way that men approach tasks is very like bullet points, like, okay, what has to be done? The way women approach tasks tends to be much more detail oriented. And so oftentimes what can happen is the way like men do things is not up to the standards of women. And we like literally don't understand what we did incorrectly as arbitrated by them. Over time, it's theorized that is what has, at least in part, led to an increase in divorce since second wave feminism. Also, I think that children intuitively know what those gender roles are because they share in that biology. And I think that when they view their dads as sort of like these androgynous characters, or like even the domestic ones, I think that that can almost like mess with them psychologically and leave them like looking for that sort of figure, masculine figure in other things. So again, I'm not universally against it, but there's a tendency for those things to happen from what my understanding is.
All right. Thank you.
Next question, Bryce, go ahead and unmute.
Hey, John, I've been a fan since probably the Whole Foods video. It's probably what got me started on your videos. That's a couple others. So I've been around for a while. But basically, my question's kind of different than a few of the others. But I think you've probably touched on this in your videos. So the left is very, they're good at just changing public opinion basically overnight without the general populace knowing it. You know, about 12, 14 years ago when Obama was running for president, he was against gay marriage. And now it's, you know, if you're not, you know, 100% for gay marriage, you're Satan himself. So how do conservatives go about changing the public perception on big hot button issues like that and actually start pushing this back? Because in my opinion, if we don't, we're just going to keep going in this spiral forever. And we'll, you know, conservatives will be pushing, you know, like, what is it, like hormone therapy for 6-year-olds in about 2 to 4 years from now. So like, what do you think we should do about that?
It's interesting you say that, because ironically, Satan is actually pro-gay marriage. But as far as that, really what it comes down to is conservatives having the inability and lack of inclination to set narratives, as opposed to just perpetually react to them and always be on the back foot, always play defense. So Nietzsche had a really good quote pertaining to this. I don't remember it exactly, but it was something to the effect of truth is nothing without power. And so conservatives really need to understand this, because the reason the left is so compelling isn't because they're right, and they're not. It's because they have power, and they have the institutional power to command those narratives. And like I mentioned in the speech, politics is basically a spectator sport. So all those people, I think I had this taken a video, all those people that we saw, you know, protesting for BLM, voting for Joe Biden, masking up, at least half of them would have been Trump voters if the roles were reversed, if like we actually had that media power and representation, but we don't. And the reason for that is because we were kind of seduced into this idea of like, oh, America's an idea. They just want to talk. Free speech is what America's all about. And then they had what's referred to as the Long March for like the last 80 years, 100 years, I guess, through all the institutions. And slowly they went from being purged for being communist to purging people who weren't communists, which is where we are now. And so there's actually a very good argument to be made that where we are right now as conservatives in 2020 is analogous to where the left was in 1920, as far as literally being fired for not aligning with the established paradigm. So yeah, we basically need to have our own slow march. The problem with that is, biologically speaking, conservatives tend to have a higher time preference. So it's going to be difficult to really get conservatives to understand that they need to literally dedicate their lives to this, and they're probably not going to see the results of that effort. We sort of have this, oh, well, they'll figure it out when they get older kind of mentality, which really isn't true. So yeah, I would say that that just comes down to, like I said to the other guy earlier, just getting that power and then wielding it responsibly. And again, I mentioned earlier that like I care more about people than I do about truth. Doesn't mean I lie, because I don't. The point of that is like, we know what's good for people and what's not. And so we have an obligation to disseminate that to society. And so if and when we get into that position, which I honestly, I do think we will ultimately, there's too many of us for us to not, then we will use that responsibly to ultimately impose our framework on everybody else, which is good. So they'll be fine. It's all going to be fine.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will read now the King, 14-year-old Chad without with the broken mic. He says, hold on, let me scroll, my computer's frozen. He's basically he says, okay, so he says prestigious schools, international baccalaureate, Ivy League. Should I go if I can survive for the prestige?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it. Because they're kind of cringe, honestly, but it is required to get you into those, more powerful positions, I guess, mainly because of networking, not even because of what you'll gain from the experience, but even that requires very, very, very great discipline and calculation. You have to go into it knowing that you're just going to play it very close to the chest. Maybe, oh yeah, he votes Republican because he likes low taxes or whatever. And you're just like, yes, or be the model little Republican. You don't want to come out swinging with your more like national populist, which I don't know if that's you, or more authentically conservative. If you watch my channel, you're probably like roughly aligned there, give or take half a deviation. But yeah, I would say it's worth it if you can. I wouldn't say like aspire to it, but if you have the option and you can afford it without going into debt, I would say it's probably a good idea.
Okay, next question from Lewis. Go ahead and unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a big fan of the channel. I've been here for like a year, and I'm just a really big fan. Okay, so it's not really a serious question, but in a video maybe like a year ago, you said you would release a rap video of you like rapping about Minecraft if you hit like 300K subs. Are you gonna do that?
I tweeted out the SoundCloud link to the song, but then my Twitter got deleted, so it's gone. But the chat, I guess, is familiar. Yeah, Crafted and Nap, and that was the song. Someone probably has a link to it that they can send you. Maybe I'll post it on my Instagram or something. But yeah, I'm a man of my word. I released it. It was good. It was epic. So yeah, it is out there somewhere.
Okay, thank you.
Next question, Paul, go ahead and unmute.
Yo. All right, so I'm a stormtrooper on your guild. You probably might be recognize my voice, but your talk was really good on the sexual revolution and feminism and stuff. But have you read the book by Carl R. Truman, Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self?
Maybe. That rings a bell. I think I own it. I don't think I've read it.
Oh yeah, it's I started reading it recently. It's a really good book that goes over the entire like historical framework of thinking, how we went from like how we basically reimagined how we think of culture and how we think of ourself, which led into the sexual revolution. So I thought you might be interested in that, and it might help you with your like if you want to like add on to the speech or something. Although it was still really good. So yeah, that's basically my suggestion.
Okay, and final question, Michelle, go ahead and unmute.
Hi, John. Thank you so much for your speech. Thank you so much for coming. So my question is, a study by I believe it was the American Psychology Association, stated that the first exposure to pornography for young boys is around the age of 13, in a sample of about, I believe it was 330 men, around 300 men. So they were introduced to porn at a young age, and more often than not, I believe that porn is, talked about, even shared and even introduced in friend groups of young boys. So from my personal experience as a girl, there were no conversations about pornography or anything of this nature that we had as girls at all. And it seems to be pretty prevalent in, more male circles. So my question is, what can we do to protect young boys from other young boys in the meantime, while we make efforts to, ban pornography in its entirety?
That's a really good question. I think, and this is kind of weird because there are certain things that are less desirable to young boys that my parents never even really sat down with me and talked about, like drinking and drugs. They never had that conversation with me, but like I've never even, like unironically, I've never gotten high before. I just haven't, because it's just like, I never saw the appeal. And like, I don't know, I just sort of had this mentality of like not wanting to like supplement my fun and like outsource that to substances. So I feel like there's a way to like appeal to the values of your child, and like you kind of know them. So like if my mom or my dad would have told me like, yeah, that girl's hot or whatever, but so is that girl, go talk to her. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to like be cucking yourself or something? Just like, I don't know. I think that the sort of like privacy blockers and that things you like, the parental controls, that's probably not solving the issue. The issue is that your child wants to like watch that type of material, which is understandable because they're curious and it's literally being targeted, or they are being literally targeted by algorithms that have made people a lot of money. So maybe, I don't know, try to cultivate some sense of like not even wanting to be online in the first place. I think it also depends on the age of the child. But honestly, it's probably inevitable. We would need to do something on the macro scale, because every kid has a phone now, and if they don't, I mean, it's at school, and we really just, it's going to be very, very difficult to regulate that, because it's one thing when it was like the family computer, but now it's like everyone has a smartphone. And if they don't, like you mentioned, their friends do, and they're like, hey man, have you seen this? Because you're not able to have that with have that sort of responsibility and overreach with other kids. But they'll see it, they'll show your kid, then your kid will Google it. So I would say long term, as you acknowledged, we are going to have to do something legislatively to take care of it. But in the short term, what we can do now to stop boys from watching it, they've probably already seen it. I think that seeing it is inevitable. I would imagine that there's no way around that. I think it's just a matter of letting them know what they're doing to themselves, and sort of instilling that in them before they develop a very bad habit. And that habit then like crystallizes into an addiction. So
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks so much for your answer. And this might sound really ignorant, but what is the 7% that everyone keeps saying in chat? What is that?
The 7% is a law. It used to be a theory, but it is actually law, which is that for whatever reason, my audience is always exactly 7% female, whether it's I look at the YouTube analytics or I do like a Google Doc with like a poll on it. And then, I have gender as a demographic. For some reason, it's always 7%. So the 7%ers are the women who watch the channel. We love our 7%ers. We cherish our 7%ers. So yeah, Doyle's law, exactly. And so there's been a joke I made back when I had Twitter where I was like, it's always at 7%. And every time it starts to get up to about 10%, I make a note to say something sexist in the next video to get it back into equilibrium. So
okay. I have actually never watched your show, but I will now. You seem like a great guy, and you learned a lot about the abortion pill that I really didn't know. So thank you for your speech, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, that is the end of our questionnaire. I just want to say thank you everybody for your questions. I just want to make a quick comment on the questions. As president of the club, this was so white pilling to see like just this like cavalcade of like young like men, especially, and of course the 7%ers, but like mostly like young men who are like genuinely trying to be like Christ-like, who are genuinely desiring families, who are looking and yearning for God, who, and I put out a tweet about this, whose previous generations gave them like nothing, who grew up in like a meaningless, nihilistic cesspool, who have to endure like constantly being spit on, and yet they will just they're just not giving in. And I think that that's like the fact that John, we've never had this kind of audience before, so the fact that John attracts that kind of person is like speaks volumes about his character. Like the fact that John Doyle has cultivated this community where it's all about like what did you say, a healthy body is a healthy mind? What did you say that?
A disciplined mind is an effective mind.
There it is. So it's just like people have been looking for somebody to turn to, and I can't even imagine how many souls you've like really saved. And so I'm just so thankful for your service, John. So thank you so much.
Thank you for saying that. That's very nice. I don't even know what to say, because I don't know. I feel like I just about a camera sometimes, but yeah. And another thing I will say to the boys, actually, on that note, keep in mind, it's only 7%, which means you really have to work hard to make yourself better, because you've got the 93% competing for the 7%. So gotta get in the gym, big guy. Gotta stop eating all the corn syrup, read your Bible.
True. They keep you on with the corn syrup. That's how they keep you on the mental prison. It's the corn syrup.
You're saying things that are true, but your tone suggests that you don't know that they're
true. No, it is true. It's just you have to come in with like a veil of like irony, because it's like so ridiculous to suggest that like GMOs and corn syrup like actually keep you locked in like a mental prison, but it's actually 100% true. So And microplastics. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. The Chad drinking out of a metal water bottle. No, thank you. No, thank
Very
you,
true.
microplastic.
Very true. Okay, everybody, we have gone now 45 minutes over time. We are so thankful for everybody coming out. Keep your heads up. We're all going to make it. Thank you.